Hi, everybody. Welcome to our first June Stay Connected webinar. We are very excited to welcome our presenter and outdoor education expert, Jack Hilgert, who's with Nebraska Forest Service, the outdoor education coordinator. So on behalf of the Get Connected Conference Committee, I'm Kim Larson, and I welcome you today, and we're really excited to see what Jack is up to and the resources he has available for sharing for your after school and summer program. So Jack, I'll let you take it away. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kim. And hi, everyone. Again, my name is Jack Hilgert, and I work for the Nebraska Forest Service. The Nebraska Forest Service is unique. We're one of 5 state forest services that's housed in a land-grant university. So here in Nebraska, we're housed in the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And so we always like to share our land acknowledgement statement at the beginning of our major presentations. So at the State Forest Service, we work with Nebraskans all across the state, and we recognize the Indigenous community members who live and work alongside us each and every day. So we want to, build great relationships with those community members as well as all Nebraskans as we work in communities all across the state. So that first link just has information about how the university crafted its land acknowledgement statement. And then I always share that second link from the Bureau of Indian Affairs with a guide about how you can develop your own statements for your own programs if you so desire. But again, my name is Jack Hilgert, and most of what I do is I'm the Conservation Education Coordinator for the Nebraska Forest Service. And my programs primarily focus on being the state coordinator for Project Learning Tree and Project Wet. Environmental education programs, which we'll hear about in a little bit. Like I just said, the Forest Service is part of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and we're housed out of the Institute for Agriculture and Natural Resources, or IANR, which is the same home organization for Nebraska Extension, who you might be familiar with as well. Our agency's mission is to enrich the lives of all Nebraskans by protecting, restoring, and utilizing Nebraska's tree and forest resources. And with that, we'll get started. So first off, I always like to give a little bit of background information about Project Learning Tree and Project Wet, and then we'll dive into some more information about some upcoming programs that might be of interest to you and your students. So Project Learning Tree is a comprehensive environmental education curriculum program that started in the late 60s and early 1970s. So if we think about like the history of the United States at that time period, in the late 60s and the 70s, we think about things like you might remember from history class or from life that like there was the Vietnam War era. We had a time of really big social upheaval in the United States with different movements. And one of those movements was the environmental movement at the time. So people were really wanting to help conserve the environment. That led to a lot of federal legislation that we still use today to govern how we manage our resources, such as the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, the Endangered Species Act, which all were passed by the Nixon administration right during that time period. And so as all of that was happening kind of in the public discourse around us, educators like yourselves were trying to teach about these concepts to their students, right? Thinking about how do we talk about conservation? How do we teach about, endangered species or cleaning our air or cleaning our water and everything else? And so Project Learning Tree was one of the original tools that was created at that time to fill that gap. And it's still a program that's vibrant today. It's the oldest of what we call the projects curriculum programs. You might have also heard of Project Wet, which we'll talk about in just a slide or two. And then Project Wild, which I don't coordinate in Nebraska, but Monica McCoubry at Nebraska Game and Parks Commission runs that program. Or you might be familiar with one of their curriculums like Growing Up Wild. and that they're kind of all sister programs that were born out of that era. But PLT is the original mother program. And so organization that created the curriculum for Project Learning Tree in the early 1970s, then created the Project Wild curriculum in the 1980s. And then took the Project Wet curriculum from a regional level to a national level in the 1990s. So since 1976, when that first curriculum guide was available for publication, PLT has reached over 138 million students through training 765,000 educators and counting all across the United States. And we love to talk about how we teach students how to think, not what to think about environmental issues and our natural world. What that means is that as educators, we're here to help give students these really enriching environmental and nature-based learning experiences that give them the tools and the skills to then come to their own conclusions about what to do in their communities when we think about these big picture issues like climate change or invasive species or endangered species, right? Here in Nebraska. So we're never here, and the curriculum is built so the educator is never going to be persuading a political agenda or informing an ideological spectrum. What we're here to do is just give them those really great enriching experiences that help students care about the natural world, and then also give them skills like critical thinking, research, and observation that then they can use as they grow into adulthood. So PLT works. Most of our educators report back to the program that they use the program and the curriculum units at least monthly in the ways that they work with students. And in Nebraska, PLT is, of course, sponsored by my agency. Nationally, it's sponsored by the Sustainable Forestry Initiative, which is a nonprofit that's focused on certifying private forested lands that are harvested for products. And so they financially sponsor the national staff that write curriculum and help guide the program in Washington, D.C. But again, this is a statewide program here in Nebraska, and it's a national initiative. So there's state coordinators like myself in every state. So you may have heard of PLT before, coming to Nebraska even. PLT uses forests as a window to the world to increase understanding of our complex environment, stimulate critical and creative thinking, develop the ability to make informed decisions on environmental issues, and instill the confidence and commitment to take responsible action. And just to repeat again, we teach students how to think, not what to think about the environment and environmental issues, right? As an agency, we're really invested in Project Learning Tree and in environmental education because we believe in Nebraska, no conservation work is going to be productive without the enthusiastic partnership of our citizens and our private landowners. And the state of Nebraska is 97% privately owned land. And so that means that it's really critical that at an early age, we give kids these great experiences in nature that hopefully help them to gain an understanding about how our natural systems work. And then ultimately, when they become the next generation of voters and landowners and community leaders across the state, they're going to take action that benefits trees, forests, and the environment. Project Wet is a really similar program. It just is a little bit younger. So it started in 1982 in North Dakota and then was moved around to kind of a regional basis in the mid 80s before being taken onto a national scale in the early 1990s. But similar to Project Learning Tree, there's several different curriculum units that Project Wet creates and provides that we train educators in. The focus is just a little bit more different on water as a resource. Project Learning Tree is a little bit more focused on trees and forests, as you could imagine, and then Project Wet is more on water. So unlike PLT, Wet isn't housed in a different organization nationally. There's just a private nonprofit that supports the program out of Bozeman, Montana. And there's educator guides for students for preschool all the way through high school. And the mission of Project Wet is to advance water education to understand global challenges and inspire local solutions. And in Nebraska, WET is sponsored again by my agency at the State Forest Service. But we are really happy at the Forest Service to work with Kim and the Department of Education, lots of other partners such as Nebraska Game and Parks, Morrill Hall, Hastings Museum, our AZA accredited zoos, and so many other great partners across the state to help bring these programs to students like the students that you work with. And you might be thinking, well, sounds like fun programs, but why would we want to be doing these in the first place? And there's lots of really great benefits to environmental education that I'm sure you all are aware of, right? Since COVID-19, right, I think we've all learned and appreciated a little bit more our time to get outside and get engaged in the natural world. Since parks and nature-based places that were outdoors were one of the few safe places during the early time of the pandemic. But outdoor learning, there's lots of studies that show that there's great physical, mental, and even academic benefits for our students when they get to go outside during their core instruction and experience nature where they live in their neighborhoods. These are just a few of them, but in our physical health, exposure to nature, studies show reduces blood pressure, lowers our stress rate, lowers heart rate, and even longitudinally, students who have a higher exposure to nature have a lower rate of contracting diabetes and other health ailments later in life. And the association between green space exposure or getting outdoors and getting into nature is even more positive for our community members who are of lower socioeconomic status. For those of us who maybe work a lot with students who are high needs students or students that come from the margins of our societies here in Nebraska, right? It's even more pressing for us to get those students outside because these benefits are even bigger for those students. There's also great mental health benefits for getting outdoors, right? I know even me, like on Zoom, when I'm doing my work, right, it's a great 5 minutes to get outside and go on a walk sometimes. And I'm sure we've all experienced the same thing with our screens, but there's lots of great benefits for mental health. When we're outside in nature, I'll probably see other people who are in nature as well. And there's studies that show that helps create more of a sense of community and supportive social groups. And there's even science that shows that students who maybe aren't our highest performing students in an academic setting thrive in a nature-based classroom or in an outdoor setting. Students who have ADHD and autism diagnoses, studies show tend to perform better when given tasks and instruction in an outdoor classroom or in an outdoor setting compared to be giving the same instructions or a similar task setting in an indoor traditional classroom environment. So that's a lot about the background of Project Learning Tree and Project WET. So do we have any questions before I dive into kind of the next set of our resources? Well, if we don't have any questions, where can you find out more? We're going to talk about some more programs that really bring the curriculum units to life here in Nebraska, but you can, of course, always attend. We encourage you to attend a professional development workshop. So a majority of the curriculums that we provide through Project Learning Tree and Project WET are available through professional development events that we do all across the state. One of which is our Bloom Box at School program, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But we also offer virtual or online webinars every month, as well as in-person opportunities in your community. And we also are always happy, myself or our network of partners, to come to you and develop or lead a private training as well. So if you're looking for something more specific, or maybe you have a private group that you're a part of at your school, or you're part of even just part of your professional development before the beginning of the academic year, we're always happy to come on in and lead a training too for your audience. So with that, I'm going to kind of switch my slides over to our other PowerPoint for our Bloom Box at School. So Bloom Box at School is a really unique partnership between my organization, the Nebraska Forest Service, and the Statewide Arboretum, which is one of our great partners. Does everybody see my slides here? Perfect. So the Statewide Arboretum, they are what we call our nonprofit branch of the State Forest Service. So they're part of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and part of the Nebraska Forest Service, but they're also a private nonprofit. And their mission is to plant a healthy Nebraska for healthy people, vibrant communities, and a resilient environment. So with Bloom Box, they are this program helps to give community members across our state and organizations a small bite-sized garden that they can plant that's curated using native plants and pollinator-friendly plants for their local community and their local site. So with Bloom Box at School, thanks to funding from the State Department of Education through the Extended Learning Opportunity Grant, the Statewide Arboretum is able to curate for your school or your site a bloom box that you can plant. And so these are manageably sized gardens. Again, the Statewide Arboretum will do a majority of the plant selection, right? They're going to work with you to know what do you want out of your bloom box, right? Are you thinking of something for pollinators or more for water control or more for aesthetics? And then using that information as well as the community where you live, we're going to give you plants that we believe will be successful perennials for your local school or your environment. And then they're going to help, the Statewide Arboretum staff will help to plant the bloom boxes on your site or at your school at the end of the semester. And Bloom Box, you might be asking, well, what is this program? This is a program that we run for every fall and spring at the Statewide Arboretum, and it's smart gardening for everyone. So again, these are hand selected by our horticulture staff that are unique for your site, and then they're going to have the tools, hopefully, and the training for you to help plant and take care of your garden for the future. So with our Bloom Box at School program, then what we're able to do is, let's see, did my screen switch over? Perfect. We're able to do then is we're going to give you training in our project learning tree, explore your environment activity guide, which is our kind of bedrock or mainstay project learning tree curriculum for grades kindergarten through 8th grade. And then you'll receive training from the Nebraska Statewide Arboretum as well, and how to take care of your bloom box after it's planted. And then throughout the semester, we're going to ask you to lead a after-school club with your students using the project learning tree curriculum activities. And then at the end of the semester, or about midway through, because it's fall, you know, we don't want to plant in the middle of December, Sarah and the Statewide Arboretum will come to you and help you plant either trees or 1 to 10 trees or a bloom box on your site at your school. So it's a great way for you to integrate quality, non-biased environmental education activities from Project Learning Tree into your programming, and then kind of come up to a capstone of some sort of, you know, almost service learning experience for your students, where they get to really improve your school site with your environment. And then hopefully, again, after this program, you get to use the PLT curriculum forever and ever, as you know, at your site with your students and your staff. And then hopefully you get to also see the trees or the bloom box grow and develop on site into the future. So again, our deadline for this fall's cohort is going to be July 31st. We just ask that everybody fill out a quick little Qualtrics application that we can send out in the notes after this presentation. And I'm sure Kim and others have been sending it out in their newsletters, and we've been sending it out as well through our networks at the Arboretum and the Forest Service. And it's just a quick little application that we do ask that you have permission from your principal to plant on site, just because we know that sometimes that can ask some administrator questions, you know, about what you're doing out in the schoolyard with your kids. Again, we had a great successful program this spring with about 15 different schools across the state participating in different ways, getting trained in PLT and then using the curriculum and planting trees or bloom boxes this spring. And then also, of course, we will offer this in the fall of this year and then another cohort in the spring of 2024. So maybe if there's like construction on site or you feel like there's a lot going on at your school and this is a great opportunity, but not something you feel comfortable participating in this fall, this will be an opportunity that we'll send out again sometime about midway through probably the fall semester too. So that way you can participate in spring. But you can also fill out the same application if you're interested in maybe a spring planting project. Just put that in the notes that you're more interested in spring of 2024 instead of fall of 2023. So do we have any questions about Bloombox at school before I keep going? I know that there's like a lot of information that we've just shared.
Jack, beyond putting their information in the chat, is there a link that you could share where people could go and apply after the fact?
Yes, I can pull that up here in just a minute. I'll put in the chat for sure though. You can always reach out to myself via email or Sarah Buckley from the Statewide Arboretum, who's kind of our leading the planting side of that. And these are our emails that I'll put in the chat too, in case there's any other questions. But with that, there's of course lots of other ways that besides just Bloombox at school that you can, help support your students with outdoor and environmental learning experiences from the State Forest Service and our partners. Like I mentioned before, we have workshops that we do all across the state. So if you enjoyed today's presentation and you want to kind of come to a full professional development experience, we model activities, we help teach you how to lesson plan and get these activities integrated into your curriculum and give you the time and space to really think about how you can do outdoor and environmental education in the context where you work with students, whether you're a K through 12 classroom teacher, an after school educator, or even a childcare provider. So we also offer at the State Forest Service virtual and in-person classroom visits. So I can physically travel to anywhere in the state within a 2-hour driving radius of my office here in Lincoln to provide in-person programming, depending upon my schedule and the request. So we're happy to come and lead an activity with your students, or one of our foresters that's more in outstate Nebraska would also always be happy to present to your classes. We also provide field trips to 2 Forest Service sites that we manage in Plattsmouth, Nebraska and in Lincoln, Nebraska, where you can come and bring your students to us, and then we lead them on a little walk in the woods where they get to go and experience a real forest, right? And that's a great way to, start off a unit talking about trees and forests, or, again, have that kind of capstone summative experience where you get to get your students out into the woods if you're maybe a school that's in more of an urban environment. And then we also have educator tree trunks located throughout the state with partners in Ponca, Trenton, Gering, Hastings, Columbus, and Omaha, where you can check out 12-gallon sized totes that have copies of the curriculum units from Project Learning Tree and Project WET, as well as supplemental supporting educational resources. So like, for example, I have my little tree cookie name badge on me today, but some of the PLT activities reference tree cookies, which are like tree cross sections that help show students the rings of a tree and talking about the age of trees. So those are in the tree trunks, or tree identification guides that are specific to our Nebraska or our Midwestern regionally adaptive trees. So you can identify trees in your community or on your school grounds as you do the activities. And some other storybooks and things that are directly referenced within the activity guide that you just might not have quickly at hand. And then we're always happy to provide other environmental education support. So we do a monthly e-newsletter where we send out training opportunities or grant opportunities that we know about from our partner network. and just other ideas for you and inspiration to help kind of continue outdoor learning all year long with your students. So on these slides, we just have links to some of that information that we just talked about. So with our tree trunks, this is our map of those community partners that host our tree trunks. So in Gering, the trunks are at the Wildcat Hills Nature Center. In Trenton, they're at the Extension Office, which is Trenton is like about a 5-minute drive right outside McCook in southwestern Nebraska. In Hastings, they're at the Hastings Museum. In Lincoln, we're at Morrill Hall. They run our trunk program with their great trunk resources that they have available from the museum. In Columbus, we're at Educational Service Unit 7. In Omaha, we partner with Keep Omaha Beautiful, and they also have several educator trunks available as well from their organization. And then at Ponca, we're up at Ponca State Park and the Great Nature Center up there in the Northeast. So, and again, anyone in the state can check these out, use them with your students, and that can be anytime throughout the academic year. So, and this information is available at that QR code, or I can put the link in the chat as well. So, and then I just wanted to share a couple quick QR codes to some of what we just talked about. So if you scan the QR code on the left-hand side, it's our link to our e-newsletter. So that's just a way for you to register and stay in touch with the State Forest Service and all we have to offer. Just make sure that you click the box that says conservation education. So that way you receive our information about our education programs. And then we always have workshops going across the state. Next week, we have a workshop in Chadron on Thursday on the Project Wet curriculum activity guide. And we'll also be doing some kayaking in the afternoon during that at Chadron State Park, which will be really fun. And then on Saturday, we're at a site here in Lincoln to do some early childhood and early elementary units with educators from Project Learning Tree and Project Wet on Saturday the 10th. So, yep, there's always something going on with our programs. So I saw Jesse just put in the chat, can the trunks be checked out in the summer? Yes, they can. So we kind of rely on our community partners to run their logistics. So every site kind of has their own deadlines of how much in advance they want you to request a trunk, how long a trunk can stay in your classroom, just with their own organizational capacities. But all of our partners are running the trunk programs all the time. So they're definitely available for your summer programs. And then this is my contact information as well. So you can always learn more about our programs on our Nebraska Forest Service website, nfs.unl.edu/education. And then always feel free to reach out to me with any questions or about Boombox at School, Project Learning Tree or Project Wet, or just anything else related to environmental education. And if I can't help you out, we probably know somebody else who can. So we work a lot with great partners all across the state. So I'm just going to drop a few links in the chat to some of that information that we just shared. But are there any questions before we wrap up our time together?
Jack, you were so thorough in your description of all your different programs. I thought of questions along the way, but then your next sentence would answer it.
Well, thanks.
I'm just so excited about all of these outdoor learning opportunities that you're able to bring to children, youth, students all across Nebraska, and your willingness to travel, and Sarah's team, their willingness to come out and help you even plant your garden. So helpful and important work.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and we couldn't do this without all of our great partners like Kim and the State Department of Education and our local community partners that we work with. So it's definitely a team effort. But I'm gonna just in just a second here, I'm getting that link for the application for Boombox at School in case you were wanting that. information, but if not, feel free to pop any more questions in the chat, or, we hope to see you soon at a training or a workshop or somewhere, hopefully outdoors, so enjoy the rest of the summer, and we are excited to see a lot of fun new outdoor learning programs come all across the state. So always feel free to reach out and get in touch, and we're happy to help connect the dots.
Thank you so much, Jack. And I hope we get to see you at our upcoming Get Connected After School Conference in Omaha.
Oh,
At a
for sure.
table, a session, learn more about your work, and just get to see you in person.
Definitely. I wouldn't miss it.
Thank you so much. And our group here really appreciates the information. We'll make sure that we share the recording widely, and any resources you want folks to have, if you send those to me, we'll post them along with the recording of this webinar so everybody can find them easily. Your QR codes, we can stick those up there as well. Thanks everybody for joining. Our next Stay Connected is June 15th, and we'll be talking about after school and summer program safety with some NDE, Nebraska Department of Education safety experts. So we will see you then, and everybody have a great day. Get outside. It rained here in Lincoln, so we're all really happy today. Thanks so much, Jack. We appreciate your work. We really do.
Thanks. See you all soon.
See you all soon.